Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. This, as Virji's mentioned, this is quite a difficult one because there's quite a few factors at play, and what we're trying to do in this 50 minutes hour is try and get to grips with it. And the main thrust of the argument is that not only that you sort of get some knowledge on it, but more so is that you can empower yourself so you can have these discussions with your friends and your family, because a lot of people will say that even Gursikhs who are studying and people who are passionate about Sikhi and stuff, when they get to enter a debate about the genocide, some people will go, yeah, we know that so many people were killed in Delhi, 5,000, they got butchered, they got ties wrapped around their necks and set on fire. Yeah, we know 25, 30,000, even 40, 50,000 were dumped into the rivers of Punjab. But what was Sant Bhindranwale doing in Sri Akal Takht Sahib? And sort of that element of it seems to dog every single debate. So we're going to try and give some kind of context as to what Santji was doing there. But more importantly, had Sant Bhindranwale come out and surrendered, when all the tanks and all the armaments were there at the gates of Harimander Sahib, when they were ready to roll, if Santji had come out with his hands in the air, would all of this destruction never have happened? So that's what we're going to try and discuss. Firstly, there's a lot of accusations leveled against Santji that he was a terrorist, or he was trying to break India. He had women in Harimander Sahib. There was drugs found in Sri Akal Takht Sahib. He was armed to the teeth. They were terrorizing Sangat. They were killing innocent Hindus, pulling them off buses. There are a lot of these kind of misconceptions, and we've obviously, some of you may know that we've got a YouTube channel called RajoanaTV, where on one of the videos we've debunked a lot of those myths. Today is specifically about this one, about why Santji was still there. If we sort of believe that had Santji come out Akal Takht, Sri Akal Takht Sahib, with his hands in the air, and that attack, Operation Bluestar, would never ever have happened, then we are struggling to understand Sikhi in the wider context. But what I want you guys to keep in the back of your mind while I discuss some of these issues is the concept of Sri Akal Takht Sahib. Before even mentioning Santji and what Santji was doing there, we need to get to grips with what Sri Akal Takht Sahib stood for. It's not just marble and gold. It's not just like people say it's our Supreme Court. We often fail to realize why Guru Arjan Dev Ji felt the need to build a Supreme Court. Guru Hargobind Sahib, sorry. When Guru Arjan Dev Ji gave the Shahidi, Jahangir said that, right, Guru Arjan Dev Ji has to be made Shaheed, has to be executed, or he has to accept Islam. This is where we get our famous Gurbani, where it says, Tera Pana Meetha Lage. Guru Arjan Dev Ji sat on a tawa and had hot sand poured onto their head. What Guru Arjan Dev Ji gave us was this concept of Shahidi and Sabr, which is why a lot of the young, especially the active youth groups, they do shabils on Guru Arjan Dev Ji Shahidi. The whole point of a shabil is they give cold drinks to commemorate Guru Arjan Dev Ji Shahidi. That cold drink is to show how cold, how firm and how cool Guru Arjan Dev Ji remained while sat on a hot plate and had hot sand poured over his head. It also suggests how sweet Guru Arjan Dev Ji took Waheguru's command that this is the end of your life. But what Guru Hargobind Sahib learnt from that Shahidi, not only that we accept Waheguru's will, but he also learnt that this beautiful Buddha that Guru Nanak Dev Ji planted, if it is to survive, it cannot succumb to the will and the rule of a brutal regime. Guru Hargobind Sahib realized with Guru Arjan Dev Ji Shahidi that we need our own parliament. We need our own Supreme Court. We need something that can command us. We need something that can control our destiny. We shouldn't be at the whims of a Mughal dynasty or a Hindustani dynasty or a British dynasty. So this is where Sri Akal Takht Sahib, the concept of it comes, to ensure survival and to ensure prosperity. So as we discuss this, keep this in the back of your mind that this is what Sri Akal Takht Sahib stands for. Ultimately, what we want to know as we go through this is that Sri Akal Takht Sahib, when it was created, that it wasn't a ceremonial seat of power, it was a seat of power. This is what we have to remember. But before I touch upon Santji and when Santji came onto the scene, let's look at just briefly, and I mean very briefly, like there's so much stuff, like with each subject I could probably go on for an hour, someone else could go on for 2 hours because there's so much stuff. But let's just look at, because people tell us that Santji was a terrorist, somehow he created his own version of Sikhi. So what was life like before Santaji came onto the scene? Was Punjab prosperous? Were Sikhs living in peace? Were they happy? In 1947, when partition came, and after 90% of the sacrifices to free India, Sikhs were promised that they would experience the glow of freedom. But what actually happened was that Sikhi as a religion and Punjab as a geographical location was singled out. And very briefly, the way Sikhi was singled out, Article 25 of the Indian Constitution said, Sikhi does not exist. You are not a Sikh. You're a Hindu with long hair. Even in this country, in 1981, in the Mandla vs. Lee case, they not only said that Sikhi is a religion, they said they're not only a separate ethnicity, but a separate race of people. That was this country in 1981. 1947, the Indian establishment tell us Sikhi does not exist, you're Hindus with long hair. That's how they attack Sikhi. Then they learned a couple of lessons from the British. They learned that Punjab was the last state to fall before they took over, that it was the strongest, it was the home of the brave. So they think if we're going to control India, if we're going to control 1 billion people, we need to start targeting the one that might expose us, that might stand against us. So they look at Punjab. With Punjab, they split us in half. Half of Punjab was robbed and Pakistan was created. Pakistan took the most fertile land that we had, and in it, almost 1 million people died. Already 1 million people have been killed during partition. Then they decide that we're going to truncate Punjab even more, because even after that split, Sikhs of Punjab was still working hard, they were still prosperous, Punjab was still thriving. So what do? They split Punjab in half again. They create Himachal Pradesh and Haryana. So they truncate Punjab to such a small size so they can never rise again. Then they target our water and our electricity. They start taking it free of charge. They then deny Punjabi language. They recognize every single other language but deny Punjabi. It took 100,000 arrests just to recognize Punjabi as a language. 100,000. So we have our natural resources being robbed. Punjab was a farming state, so if our water is getting robbed and electricity, we really haven't got much left. Our size is being cut. Chandigarh, which was our capital, was robbed from us. Sikhi has been denied as a religion. Over 200,000 people court arrest. 200,000 people fill the jails of Punjab to say that we're not happy with the way we're living. 200,000 of them. In 1951, when our people, our granddads, our forefathers were peacefully protesting to get Punjabi recognized as a language, in 1951, and you can see a picture of this on YouTube, they attacked Harimander Sahib and invaded it in 1951. They beat up the Jathedar of Sri Akal Takht Sahib, Sardar Achar Singh. They marched on the Sangat, beat them with batons, and then done a flagship march across the Parikrama, and then closed Harimander Sahib to us. 1951. You can see a picture of this. Type in Harimander Sahib attack 1951 and there's a picture of a flag march on the Parikrama, and you can't see any member of Sangat there. At that time, Sant Bhindranwale was 3 years old. I'm sure some people would still like to blame that attack on him. So we've got this whole thing working against us. Many of you might know from Gurbakh Singh's failed hunger strike and Bapu Surat Singh Khalsa, who's doing a hunger strike right now. This isn't a new phenomenon. There was somebody called Darshan Singh Feruman. Just to get Chandigarh back to Punjab, that man fasted to death. It wasn't a Gurbakh Singh style hunger strike where it failed a couple of times. He took it to the end just to get Chandigarh back. At the same time, human rights abuses started taking place. The police were told that these Sikhs, they are a violent qawm, they are a criminal qawm, so they need to be treated that way. So even by the mid-1970s, Sikhs and Punjab had already been singled out by the Indian establishment. What compounded the issue was Indira Gandhi, when she was running for Prime Minister, she used some illegal machinery and she was ousted, she was exposed and she was ousted from office. The main people that protested against Indira Gandhi were the Sikhs, and that's something she never forgot. So even before Sant Bhindranwale has entered the scene, which is probably 1978. Before then, he's been in the Damdami Tuksal, he's learned Gurbani, he's been under the scholarship of Sant Kartar Singh Khalsa. He's largely an unknown person. But even by then, Sikhs and Punjab were being cut to shreds. Now, after 1978, a critical time had entered the Sikh Qawm in 1978. A sect called the Nakali Nirankaris went to Amritsar, and there's masses of information on this, so I'll just give you a brief one. They went to Amritsar and they did a procession where they insulted Guru Nanak Dev Ji. They insulted Guru Nanak Dev Ji's sister. They called Kar Seva Bikar Seva. The leader, Gurbachan, went on a trailer, and you can see these kind of seats, how high they are. He went on a trailer, sat as high as those seats, and got his wife to sit just as high. He said that Guru Gobind Singh, you call him Bajawala. He put an owl on his, an eagle on his wife's shoulder. He said, she's Bajawali. Instead of Panj Pyare, he had Sat Sitare. And basically, this was on Vaisakhi Day in the heart of Amritsar. Like if we knew there was a procession going on outside right now that were insulting our gurus and our shaheeds and the basic tenets of Sikhi, I don't think any person would be remaining in this room. Just like those people in 78, they went out to protest peacefully. They were shot at in point blank range by the police. 13 Sikh were murdered that day. 13 of them. And this is when Sant Ji realized that we probably don't have a place in India. But Sant Ji could go either way. There's two ways he could have gone in 1978. He was, if you think about it, the head of the Damdami Taksal, a traditional Sikh seminary of which Baba Deep Singh was the first Jathedar. It's no small thing. Baba Deep Singh being the first Jathedar and you being in that line, that's no small thing. Sant Ji was told that don't talk about water rights. Why do about electricity? Go and do some katha. Talk about Gurbani. When I say Sant Ji had a choice, he could have been like the modern day Babi that we have today. And I'm not even talking about the fake ones, the so-called good ones. He could have travelled in an air-conditioned coach in a car. He could have gone first class to America and Canada and the UK. He could have built a dera. He could have had thousands of followers. He could have had all the money that you can imagine. He could have been like one of our Babe today. He could have made his whole life, his whole living off Gurbani. But when that Gurbani is attacked the way he is today, never say a word. He could have been exactly like that. But he decided in 1978 that he was going to reinvigorate the Khalsa. He was going to give Sikhi a face again. Because decades of oppression from the Indian establishment, I'm not just talking about electricity, water, language, decades of reconditioning our minds. They gave labels of the extremist Sikh and the acceptable Sikh, the moderate Sikh. We still use those labels today. They created a moderate Sikh, someone who cuts his hair, has a glassy, someone who goes to the mandir instead of the Gurdwara, someone who celebrates Diwali instead of Vaisakhi, instead of Bandi Chhod. That was the acceptable Sikh. The unacceptable Sikh is somebody who had his Panch Kakar, somebody who said Raj Karega Khalsa instead of Jai Mahdi. This was the label that Sant Ji tried to break. This is when he put his all on the line to do just that. To show people like us and the people of Punjab at the time who were downtrodden, didn't have any money, didn't have any employment, farmers were committing suicide, to show them that you don't need to flick back 200 years into your history to find your heroes. There's a Banda Singh Bahadur and a Baba Deep Singh that lies in all of you. This is what his mission was. Now, I can talk a bit about, which I probably won't, about the little instances of Sant Ji's life that were so great. The way he helped Hindus, the way he got people off drugs and alcohol, the way so many people turned to Sikhi. But I think in the context of this debate about whether what Sant Ji was doing in Sri Akal Takht Sahib and whether Operation Bluestar could have been avoided, and probably why it actually happened in the first place, it's important to talk about the bigger picture. And this is the bigger picture. There's three main elements to this: the political side, the religious side, and the economic side. And you'll see where I'm going with this. When Guru Hargobind Sahib created Sri Akal Takht Sahib, I don't know if many of you know, it didn't look the way it does today. It wasn't a building with marble and gold and it looked beautiful. It was a 10-foot tada, it was a 10-foot stone, block of stone. All Guru Har Gobind Sahib done was sat on that stone and said, when the rulers of the world oppress your rights, come to Waheguru's Takht and we'll give you justice. It didn't look beautiful, but the message was there, the spirit was there. Now this is what Sant Ji done. And there's not actual hard evidence for this, there's anecdotal evidence of people who lived there at the time. Sant Ji was quite happy to move in the parameters of the Indian law. He was quite happy to live in the Indian justice system, as long as it served us fairly. What he found was the people that were supposed to protect us, like the police and the politicians, the judges, the magistrates, they were all turning against us. So what he was saying to the people of Punjab, why do you want to go to these courts when they are your killers? So he set up a system. He set up a magistrate system and a Supreme Court system. What he said to the people of Punjab was, if you have any issues, don't go to the courts, whether it's land, a criminal matter, whatever. Go to your village panchayat. If that panchayat cannot resolve the matter, then we will supply you with Panj Pyare. That was the magistrate system. Panj Pyare, they will resolve your issue. If for some reason you cannot get a resolution to whatever problem you've got, then you come to Sri Akal Takht Sahib, the Supreme Court. Between 82 and 84, the Punjab administration went into shock and they panicked and they contacted the centre. They said that within our administration, Sikhs aren't bringing their cases. It's all being resolved at Sri Akal Takht Sahib, headed by Sant Bhindranwale. Now this is what the centre thought. If the Sikhs are managing law and order themselves, all they need to do is coin a currency and Khalsa Raj is in existence. This was one of the main motivating factors in Operation Bluestar. Not the physical body of Sant Bhindranwale, but the fact that he had given Guru Har Gobind Sahib's vision, he'd brought that to life. That Sri Akal Takht Sahib was managing our affairs. Secondly, the religious, the dharmic side of it. By Sant Ji's own admission through their speeches, and if you read some of the translations of their speeches, Sant Ji says that between 83 and 84, every Wednesday and every Sunday, 500 people were taken Amrit. Between every Wednesday and every Sunday. On every Wednesday and every Sunday. That's 1,000 people a week for a whole year. On Vaisakhi 1983, 10,000 people took Amrit. On Vaisakhi 1984, April 13, 1984, literally a month before the attack, 45,000 people had taken Amrit. 45,000. Now if you look at some of we all know about the British collusion, that somehow the British had helped the Indian establishment plan an attack on Harimander Sahib. In one of the documents, it says that we had received information that Harimander Sahib was out of control, which is why we had to help the Indians attack it and get Sant Bhindranwale out of there. Well, if Harimander Sahib was out of control, firstly, what do these British people know what Harimander Sahib in control looks like and what out of control looks like? What really was out of control was the Indian establishment's plugging of what Sikhi is. The remoulding that they were doing for decades, from 1947 up until 1978, up until 1981, that decade of mental conditioning, of telling us that we are just a ceremonial qawm and that the Panjaka card mean nothing to us and Raj Karega Khalsa is just a ceremonial slogan, that was all being turned on its head. 45,000 people to Amrit. What was out of control was their version of Sikhi. Another reason why Sri Akal Takht Sahib had to be attacked. A third reason is the economic one, and this is a big one as well. During the course of the Indian oppression, Sant Bhindranwale headed something called the Anandpur Sahib Resolution, or the Dharm Yudh Morcha. What that was, they were very democratic civil demands to say, give us clean air, give us clean water, Give us clean swords so we can feed our children with decent food. Give us a train that takes passengers to Harimander Sahib in a swift and safe journey called the Golden Temple Express. Give us Kirtan from Harimander Sahib that can be relayed across the world. We have that today. Kirtan that's relayed from Harimander Sahib across the world. I can't see that anybody being called a terrorist for listening to that. Santaji said we need all these things, and they were very democratic civil demands. When the government, rather than, I mean, they said that the world's largest democracy, a democracy would say, right, Mr. Bhindranwale, you're saying you want this, let's sit down on a chair and let's talk about it. That's how a democratic nation would deal with somebody like Sant Bhindranwale. Let's listen to your concerns. Instead, they started brutalizing the people of Punjab. And an Amnesty International report of 1981, 3 years before Operation Bluestar, saying that the police are arbitrarily arresting Punjabi Sikh men and raping Sikh women. This was in 1981. So Santaji decided that I'm going to intensify our struggle, agitation. And how was he going to intensify the agitation? The Sant Bhindranwale that we've been told existed, we would say that if he's going to intensify, he'll be using AK-47s, machine guns, rocket launchers. But how did he say he was going to intensify the agitation? All he said was that on May 31st, 1984, we will withhold all tax and all grain going to the centre. He asked the people of Punjab, whatever grain you have, whatever tax you have, we're not going to give it to the centre, we're going to keep it in Punjab. Indira Gandhi, panicking, thinking this is 2% of the population, but they're probably feeding half the population. If they withhold their grain and their tax, then we're pretty much screwed. So as soon as Santaji announced that we would withhold grain and tax, that's when the go-ahead was given for a full throttle military siege on Harimander Sahib. And this is documented by somebody called Ravinder Singh Pannan. He's written a book called Cannon to Cannon. They banned it. You might be able to get it on the internet. He says himself, he said, Indira Gandhi sent me, he was the Indian ambassador to Madagascar at the time. He said, Indira Gandhi sent to me, go to Amritsar and speak to Mr. Bhindranwale. Ask him, what does he want? How can we bring an end to this loggerheads that we're at? He went and spoke to Santaji, and after about an hour, he returned. He told Indira Gandhi, he's one of the nicest men I've ever met. He said he was so nice, we even had a shabil afterwards, a drink, a ruh afza. He said he agreed to all the demands, the basic, the human civil demands. He was so happy, this Mr. Pannan, that he thought, I've avoided civil war in India. I've avoided India attacking the Sikhs or the Sikhs defending themselves against India. When he relayed this information to Indira Gandhi told him categorically, May 31st, 1984, it's too late, the tanks have already been sent to Punjab. So this notion that Operation Bluestar and the genocide that happened was some kind of last resort is an absolute myth. For these three reasons alone, Santaji's vision and structure, his way of operating in Punjab, the way he politicized Sri Akal Takht Sahib, the economic reason and the religious revivalism, all those things pointed towards Sri Akal Takht Sahib and Sri Harimander Sahib having to be attacked. What India wanted to tell us at that time, and what they wanted to tell Sant Bhindranwale at the time was that you don't take your guidance from Waheguru stuff. You have to take your guidance from Delhi stuff. And it's Delhi stuff that will bring all their manpower. They will bring their Vijayanta battle tanks. They will bring their gunships. They will bring their howitzer helicopters. They will mobilize 90% of their armed forces, and they will bring it to the doorstep of Harimander Sahib, just to show you that we are your rulers, not Guru Har Gobind Sahib. There's also a notion peddled that this was a last-ditch resolution by Indira Gandhi, that somehow she was forced into doing this. There's a man called General S.K. Sinha. He's released he's documented this as well. So I suggest you guys search him up. General S.K. Sinha. He was the head of the Western Command of the Indian Army. He says categorically that in 1983, and a lot of us know this, that in 1983 they had a replica made of Harimander Sahib in the Doon Valley. and they were using the border security force, the special frontier force, to attack that replica. This is even before Sant Bhindranwale had even entered Harimander Sahib, the precincts of it. So they're practicing on this model, but then he goes on to say something else which a lot of people don't know. He says in the Sarwaya area, the aviation research commandos were changed helicopters into gunships and were practicing on a model of Harimander Sahib as well. And this was before the Dehradun replica. So you have this pre-planned, even before Santji has even entered Sri Harimander Sahib, there's this pre-planned attempt to attack the heart of the Sikh community. Now look at it from your own perspective. Santji wasn't your arm Baba. He was as sharp as anything. He was a strategist. And here's a man who knew that these replicas and these planned attacks were happening. He knew what was being mobilized. Think of it yourself. You know that your home might be attacked. The first thing you do is go back and defend it. If we give it a historical context, Baba Gurbakh Singh and Baba Deep Singh, when the Afghan rulers were coming to Harimander Sahib and attacking it, Baba Gurbakh Singh fortified Harimander Sahib, had gunpowder. Baba Deep Singh went in there with his khanda and slashed at the Mughals. Sant Bhindranwale, if he knew that in the Dehradun valleys there's a replica of Harimander Sahib, and this isn't his house. This is the house of Guru Ramdas, this is the house of Guru Hargobind Sahib, this is the heart of Sikhi. If he knew that in the Dehradun valleys there's a replica being made and it's being stormed by troopers, if in the research aviation the commandos are using gunships to possibly bomb Sri Akal Takht Sahib, what do you expect somebody of his caliber to do? Is to go back and defend it. Now this is exactly what he done. Now we all know things about the timing as well when we talk about Operation Bluestar, and I'll just touch upon it just briefly. So we know that they decided, I mean, some people even, when I get into a discussion about it, when the EDR were going to do a march in Dudley, how many Singhs went to the Guru Ghat and defended it and had weapons with them? When the UK riots were going on 3-4 years ago, how many of us went to our Guru Ghats and defended them with weapons? These were just rioters, these were just Joeys that were running around on the street. We're talking about the third world's largest army. They then planned to attack. We're told that if Sant Bhindranwale is your target, they decide to attack on a day where it was Guru Arjan Dev Ji's Shahidi Pur, where people would be arriving from every nook and corner of the country. Busloads of children will be going there. So they decide to attack on that day. The level of force, apparently on the government hit list, there were possibly 20-30 armed militants that they wanted to so-called arrest. To arrest 20-30 men, they took Vijayanta battle tanks. Now we always say that they brought tanks to Sri Akal Takht Sahib. Do we actually even stop to consider what that means, a tank? Imagine a copper where we have all these committee fights coming in with his shoes and how offended we get. These people were going to bring Vijayanta battle tanks that were used against Pakistan. They weigh more than 1 ton and they can shoot a target from 3 miles away. Multiple tanks like that were parked on our Parkarma and pointed towards Sri Akal Takht Sahib. Multiple tanks. They used the border security force, the special frontier force, Punjab armed police, Black Cat commandos, research analysis wing, the third agency, howitzer helicopters, Russian jet bombers, Israeli Kevlar helmets, gas, tanks, the works for a handful of men. The question we have to ask ourselves is, what truly is the motive if you're bringing that much weaponry to Harimander Sahib? Curfew in place. No journalists were around. If you do remember the Iraq War, it was like watching a soap opera on TV. Every day there was different footage because they had journalists there. They felt that they were on a righteous mission, so we want to show the world. If Indira Gandhi felt that she was going to get the big bad Bhindranwale and the Sikhs and teach them a lesson, give them a big bloody punch on the nose, why wasn't she going to document this? Why weren't journalists allowed? Why was every journalist taken to the border and people like prominent journalists from the BBC taken on the border and threatened with death if they didn't move? That's something to think about as well. Why were 40 other Gurukars, some people say 90 to 100, why were those attacked simultaneously? Did the people of Punjab miraculously clone 100 Sant Bhindranwales and place them in each one? Or was the government hell-bent on destroying Sikhi? These are just some of the things that we need to think about before the attack. The timing of it, the journalists being taken away, the other Gurukars that were attacked at the same time, the level of force that was used against the objective. These are some things that we have to think about. But let's just say, for instance, hypothetically, that Santji did come out. Let's say Santji decided, actually, you know what, we've taken this a bit too far, I don't think I can handle this, and come out with his hands in the air. The question we ask the Indian establishment is, when you brought the full might of your forces to the doorstep of Harimander Sahib, how did you know what a militant was and what an armed Sangat was? How could you differentiate between a combatant and a non-combatant? There's no answer for that. Secondly, again, hypothetically, Santji has come out Sri Akal Takht Sahib. According to Brahm Chilani, look this guy, a brave guy, Brahm Chilani, from the Christian Science Monitor and the Associate Press. Brahm Chilani was the only journalist left in Harimander Sahib. He risked his life to stay near Harimander Sahib. This guy was given death threats after he published his report, and you know what his report said? He said, I saw the majority of the Sangat killed with their turbans removed, tied behind their backs and shot at point blank range on June the 7th, June the 8th and June the 9th. This is the only, you could say, independent journalist left in Amritsar, in Harimander Sahib at the time. In Amritsar in general, because everyone was ushered out. The question is this: if Sant Bhindranwale was your only target, and some of the people that were with him, why was the majority of the Sangat killed after Santji was made Shaheed or militarily neutralized? Could Operation Bluestar have been avoided if Santji had come out? Thirdly, if Santji was your only target and he'd come out, he surrendered, why was the Sikh reference library that contained hundreds if not thousands of handwritten hukamname from Baba Deep Singh Ji and Guru Maharaj and handwritten histories, why was that robbed and burnt? It's another question to ask. Fourthly, the Indian establishment said he's a terrorist. I've been called an extremist, to be honest, by a lot of people. They said Santji is an extremist. The burden of proof is on them. They need to prove that he's an extremist, that he is a terrorist. They labelled Santji a terrorist in the international media, in the national and international media, and executed him. In which country does that happen? Is it viable for someone to call me an extremist and kill me? That's exactly what happened to Santji. One of the biggest factors as well, why should he have come out? He was sitting in the house of Guru Ramdas. He was sitting in the house of Guru Hargobind Sahib. He's fortified it just like Baba Deep Singh and Baba Gurbakh Singh. Where was the arrest warrant? Where was the arrest warrant to say that Sant Bhindranwale was engaged in any kind of criminal activity? No arrest warrant's ever been produced. It doesn't even exist. So even without any evidence, how do you take the might of your national army to the doorstep of Harimander Sahib and even ask someone to come out without an arrest warrant? These are just some things to think about. Even on the news today, some of you might know, Salman Khan, Bollywood actor, ran somebody over, how many years ago? I don't know, was it 10 years ago? Ran someone over 10 years ago and killed them. It's taken them 10 years to even bring him to book. They haven't sentenced him, 10 years. He actually killed someone. Who did Sant Bhindranwale kill? Who did he rob to warrant that? Something to ask yourself. Right, hypothetically, Sant Bhindranwale hasn't come out of a Ghatak Sahib. We know he hasn't come out of the Ghatak Sahib, and what happened. We could say that the Indian Army thought, well, we went for Sant Bhindranwale, but then the army went berserk. They thought, we've come here now, we bought all our armaments, we bought all our lads, let's just go for one big smash. Let's teach them one lesson. So 5,000 people perished in Operation Bluestar. Maybe we can quantify that. They came for Sant Bhindranwale. We can see that there's no justification for it, but they've come for it. If Sant Bhindranwale was the fountainhead of all trouble in Punjab at the time, and if he had to be executed because he was the fountainhead of all trouble, then why did Punjab go on a killing spree for the next 20 years? When they brought all those weapons and men to the doorstep of Harimander Sahib, after Sant Bhindranwale was militarily neutralized and 5,000 Sanghs were butchered, of which there has been no investigation to date, did they think to themselves, right lads, just go back to Delhi now, our job here is done? They kept those weapons there, they kept those tanks there, and they kept Punjab under military rule for 2 decades, and they combed the fields and the streets of Punjab, picking up youngsters like you, using fancy names like Operation Woodrose, Operation Shanti, Operation Metal, Operation Shuddhikaran. With all these fancy names pointed to one thing, and that was the physical extermination of your people. If Sant Bhindranwale was the fountainhead of all trouble, Operation Bluestar should have solved it. If I'm doing all these speeches and I'm making people aware, or there's a projects are involved, there's other youth organizations, if they're saying because of them, Sikh youth are getting radicalized and they unlawfully kill us, murder us, exterminate us, then that should bring an end to the problem. But Punjab was seeping in our blood for 20 years. This is probably one of the most sinister things, and even when the papers of British collusion broke, many of us sort of missed this. Indira Gandhi sent Margaret Thatcher a letter after Operation Bluestar. In that letter, she thanked Margaret Thatcher for the advice and guidance. And one of the first things Margaret Thatcher said to Indira Gandhi was, Indira Gandhi said to Margaret Thatcher was, and you can look at this, it's in one of the supporting documents in the report that was leaked. It says, of all the malefactors alone, those who wear the religious garb are the most dangerous. Basically, what she is saying, she is criminalizing the Sikh appearance. She's telling Margaret Thatcher that those Sikhs who wear a turban and a beard, or those Sikh girls that have a chunni, or those people that have gatre, they're the most dangerous. How can a prime minister of 1 billion people get away with saying that to another head of state? Look at the uproar it's caused with that UKIP candidate who said that if this Muslim or Pakistani candidate becomes prime minister, I'm not having it. What kind of lineage has he got here? I've got, decades and centuries. My family have been here for centuries. He's only landed here, 40, 50 years ago. How can he become prime minister, even though they're part of the same... the uproar that's caused racism, fascism. But Indira Gandhi can get away with saying that those Sikhs who have an affinity to Sikhi, their belief system and their appearance, that can be criminalized. How can we then say that Operation Bluestar could have been avoided? If Santiji was at fault, and Operation Bluestar happened because of Santiji, why did Jaswant Singh Khalra find 25,000 unidentified, unclaimed dead bodies in 1995? That should never have happened. You get rid of the radicalizer, you've gotten rid of the problem. 25,000, including Baba Manochal's 86-year-old mother and 2-year-old babies. 25,000 of them. So there is a lot of misinformation. There is a failure to ultimately understand Santiji and Operation Bluestar is a failure to basically understand Sikhi. There is a mass tirade to tell you guys, and they've got a vested interest in this, to tell you guys that Santiji was a terrorist, that he had to be killed. Because what they tell us is that, oh, you can talk about Bhagat Singh and Udham Singh as much as you want, that's fine. Because then the British were your oppressors. You can talk about Baba Deep Singh and Bhai Mani Singh all you want, because then the Mughals were your oppressors. But don't you mention Jagraj Singh Tufan. Don't mention Sukhan Jinda. Don't you dare mention Sant Bhindranwale, because now we're your oppressors. So it's up to us to get this narrative out to the wider world, because we haven't been able to understand it ourselves. And to place Santaji in our history makes the whole of that decade make sense, and what the mission should be beyond that. We live in a world where, after, say, something like the Hillsborough disaster, decades after the Hillsborough disaster, there's an inquest. People are still being arrested. People are still being charged. Inquests, investigations, all over the shop. Phone hacking scandal, investigations, inquests, everywhere. 5,000 people butchered in Operation Bluestar. Not a single investigation or an inquest. And we've just accepted that. We have been mentally conditioned so badly after 1984 that we believe that a whole generation of Sikhs, and there were a whole generation that were wiped out from 84 and beyond, they would have been parents today, that generation. We have accepted that their extermination was, well, it happened. We just never forget 84. It's just become an accepted thing in our community that, yes, this happened. There's not much we can do about it other than protest and sign petitions. Even to this day, people like Shashikant, who was an ex-DGP of Punjab Police, now there's people like DGP, there's people like A.R. Darshi, who was a Hindu sub-magistrate at the time. There are all these people now who are coming out and telling us, you know, Sant Bhindranwale, he was a social reformer, you know. He was a great man. He was a Mahapurush. 31 years later, these people are telling us that. They feel brave enough to tell us that now. And you know why? You know why these people are telling us that Santji was a social reformer? You know why people cry? So they can just see Sant Bhindranwale again. Because Punjab is seeping in poison. The reason why they call Sant Bhindranwale a social reformer, because he talked about farmer suicide. He talked about water and electricity. He talked about even weddings, only having a few people in a janayat, so it's not a burden on a daughter and her family. He talked about alcohol rehabilitation. He talked about getting away from drugs. And why do people call Santji a social reformer now? Why are people crying for him now? Because Punjab is #1 in the world for killing unborn girls. #1. India is #1 for killing unborn girls, female feticide. Punjab is the worst state within India, and tragically and ironically, Fatehgarh Sahib, where the two shortest sahibs that they gave their lives, that is the worst district in Punjab for killing unborn girls. For every 1,000 boys, there's 700 girls. Your generations are dying before they're even being born. Santji, this is what he's trying to make you aware of. Why are they calling him a social reformer? Why are people crying to see him again? Because hundreds, thousands of farmers are committing suicide on a yearly basis. Every 5 days in Punjab, 3 farmers are committing suicide. Santji warned against this. Punjab has become the drugs capital of India. Indian Express says 70% of Punjab's youth are hooked on narcotics. The rich can afford heroin and cocaine. The poor are taking horse tranquilizers, shoe polish, rubbing it in their hair. This is what he was warning you against. And all these people, nobody forces a glassy down their gob, do they? Nobody forces a tika in their forearm. But why is every single one of those druggies or smackies, and we all know there's a smacky in our pen, why are every single one of them unemployed, illiterate? They would rather jump, hop, skip, swim all the way from Punjab and sleep under the bridges of Southall and Slough rather than stay in Punjab. What does that say about what our Punjab has become? 3,000 packets of heroin enter Punjab's border every single day. There are more government-owned schools, there are more government-owned ticket, liquor stores. There are more government-owned liquor stores and ticket in Punjab than there are government-owned schools. It's the 6th river intoxicants. There are 9,000 fake dairy in Punjab today. 9,000 of them. Punjab is the only place in the world that is suffering from uranium poisoning. People are being born deformed. Faridkot is huge for deformities. Cancer. The World Health Organization says there's a cancerous epidemic in Punjab. No one's addressing this. This is why we're crying out for Sant Bhindranwale and Sant Bhindranwale. This is what he was trying to avoid. And then you'll have our people, our own so-called people say, yes, this many people died, but Sant Bhindranwale shouldn't have done what he done. This is the answer you give them. This is the Punjab we have now inherited, where economic strategists say that if Punjab carries on the way it is, in 30 years, no crop, no child will grow. The geographical nucleus of Sikhi will be finished. And if that's not enough for people to know what we lost in 1984 with the passing of Sant Bhindranwale, or what he meant, are we any better off? With the physical extermination of Sant Bhindranwale, are we any better off today? By taking our Mahapurush away from us, have they done us a favour? Is Punjab peaceful even today? By Rajoana, Jagtar Singh Hawara, Professor Pullard, countless Sikh youths rotting in Indian cages. Rotting in Indian cages. Where's Sant Bhindranwale today? Shaheed Jaspal Singh shot on the streets of Delhi, on the streets of Punjab, in a peaceful protest. By Balkar Singh, by Darshan Singh, all shot on the streets of Punjab in peaceful protest. Where was Sant Bhindranwale Singh then? Guru Maharaj's Byadbi is happening on a daily basis. Wrapped in cow dung and thrown somewhere, set on fire. Where's Sant Bhindranwale now? Operation Bluestar wasn't about a man. It wasn't about the physical body of Sant Bhindranwale. It was to strike a blow at our heart. It was to teach us a lesson. It was to keep us as a ceremonial Qawm again. You know that Qawm that Santji changed? You know that Qawm that was becoming the moderate and the extremist? The Qawm that was going to the mandir? The Qawm that was celebrating Diwali instead of Bandi Chhod? The Qawm that was saying Jai Mahdi instead of Raj Karega Khalsa? We are turning into that Qawm again. We are becoming a ceremonial Qawm. All our fights now, it's even worse now, because all our fights now are over Jathebandis, over Maryada, over caste. Is your kashara above the knee or below the knee? Should you have langar on the floor or on chairs? This is what we are fighting now. We have huge problems. Islamic grooming, farmers committing suicide, Punjab on its knees, but all our fight is within the band. This is something that we need to change about ourselves. And if we think about Santji and we think about Operation Bluestar, when they were parked those tanks opposite Sri Akal Takht Sahib and they blasted it to smithereens, those weren't parked to go and end the lives of Sikhs, some Sikhs in Sant Bhindranwale. They were to strike a blow at the sword of Guru Hargobind Sahib. They were there to strike a blow at Guru Hargobind Sahib. And not only do we defend what Santji was doing there, not only should we be on the defensive about what Santji was doing there, we should be bloody proud of what he accomplished that day or in that week. I'll tell you why we should be proud. Just before the attack on Harimander Sahib, General Bra went to the DC, the Deputy Commissioner of Amritsar, and he said to the DC, I've been told to get Bhindranwale and probably create a big mess while I'm doing it. The DC of Amritsar said, you know what? That man's an absolute tiger. He's an absolute tiger. He's not going to come easily. And this is what Brar said to the DC. He says, when planes roar and tanks rattle, even generals quake in their boots. What they failed to realize, this wasn't a general in a man-made army. This was a general in Guru Gobind Singh's army. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.